A human male, 17 years of age at the time of his death, Anakin Solo was the product of high-intensity training and extreme warfare. Like many in his bloodline, he possessed a powerful and well-rounded physical build. In terms of his overall strength, he was highly impressive. On one occasion, he was able to kick a Yuuzhan Vong warrior into Tessa Sepetine's lightsaber blade, and has been able to compete and in some cases overpower Yuuzhan Vong in battle. These feats can be credited as impressive since Yuuzhan Vong are known for being highly skilled warriors with powerful physical builds while also being resistant to the Force. In the realm of speed, while Anakin doesn't have many outright feats in this regard, he is shown to be comparable to other Jedi of his era, including pre-Prime Jacen and Jaina Solo, Lobaka, Tenel Ka Jo, and Tahiri Vela, all of whom were quite impressive in their own right. And now we get to the section about Anakin Solo's durability, and dear God, this kid has seen some stuff. How about we run down about how much punishment this kid has taken in battle? He has been struck by a Yuuzhan Vong thud bug and continued fighting, took constant pain for 15 minutes straight and never cried out, even impressing Yuuzhan Vong commander Duman Yat, had a Voxan beast claw into his back so much that it appeared to Jaina that he was wearing red clothing, has been stabbed with a Yuuzhan Vong Ampestaff before freeing Jaina from Bulrash Jelly and still going on to battle a Yuuzhan Vong warrior, has been tortured by Duman Yat, who beat him physically and subjected him to a Voxan, which was a creature that either screamed in his face loud enough to knock him unconscious, or he experienced its neural tail shock, or received acid burns from its drool. Jesus, did we forget that he's still 17? Moving on to his endurance, it's considerable, shown by his experiences of fighting armies of Yuuzhan Vong and fighting through extreme pain, on a very consistent basis. On the whole, while being quite young, Anakin Solo is not someone you want to underestimate. Not even close. Bastila Shan is a human female, roughly estimated to be in her late teens to early 20s as of the first KOTOR game. Shan's physical strength was such that she could land a kick on a fully armored Vulcar gang thug and kill him instantly, and compete with the monstrous physical strength of both Darth Malak and Revan, even carrying the unconscious Darth Revan off of his flagship following Malak's betrayal. Her speed was also quite impressive, notably evading blaster fire and being able to contend with multiple Jedi at a time. In the realm of endurance and pain tolerance, Bastila is impressive in both areas. She has fought her way through countless Sith warriors and troopers, has contended in marathon lightsaber duels, and has also survived nearly a week of endless torture from Darth Malak. While this is just a personal theory on my part, I do believe that Bastila's combat outfit could potentially be made of armor weave, which appeared to be a common thing in that era, which would provide her a bit of extra protection, if the theory is true. Both Bastila Shan and Anakin Solo were humans, roughly around the same age, which cancels out any age or biological trait advantages. In terms of both strength and speed, I see both as comparable to the other, both being shown to contend with powerful beings and fight through marathon-long battles. Bastila contending with figures like Malak and Revan, while Anakin overpowering and outfencing Yuuzhan Vong. In the realm of durability and endurance, Anakin Solo takes it no question. While Bastila is certainly impressive, she has never experienced torture on the level of what Solo endured. And add to it, Anakin consistently kept fighting through such torture, meaning that he can tank quite a bit of damage before going down. Bastila's armor weave may give her some extra protection, but it's only a little, and of the two, I find Anakin's feats to be more impressive. I award the edge to Anakin Solo for physical attributes and capabilities. A veteran of one of the most brutal and deadly wars the galaxy ever experienced, Anakin Solo was quite the talent with the lightsaber, and a true force to be reckoned with. In terms of accolades, his older brother, Jacen Solo, remarked how Anakin had slayed more Yuuzhan Vong than, quote, any of us, which may have just been referring to the 3 Solo children, but this quote took place right after the treacherous Battle of Dantooine. Add to the fact that Jacen himself outright stated Anakin to be the superior duelist to himself, and Mara Jade Skywalker also made a similar comparison. Considering the level of dueling skill that Jacen would achieve so many years later, and how advanced he already was at this point, this is a really impressive statement, although I'm not entirely sure I think Anakin has surpassed Kaitis as a duelist. While his lightsaber form has never been outright stated, I personally believe that Anakin, like many members of the New Jedi Order, was a practitioner of the 3 Rings of Defense. However, since he also trained with Luke Skywalker, who used a hybrid form of Djemso, I also believe that Anakin practiced this hybrid-based Djemso style. The 3 Rings of Defense was a tutorial style developed by members of the New Jedi Order to help students understand the basics of lightsaber combat, similar to how Form 1 Shicho operated from the Old Order. Also similar to Shicho, true masters of the style could turn it into a force of nature. As mentioned, the form possessed 3 rings of technique. The outer ring, which focused on wide-sweeping motions, mainly employing power attacks. The middle ring focusing on quicker blows with rapid strikes, and the inner ring focused on tight and quick parries along with counterattacks. Also known as the Way of the Krayt Dragon, Form 5 was developed by masters of Form 3 who wanted a more offensive approach to combat. It was based on defensive strikes coupled with immediate counters and relied heavily on strength. The form had 2 variants, Shan, which was geared towards blaster deflection, and Djemso, which was geared towards lightsaber combat. Luke's variation of the form wasn't necessarily a hybrid form as much as it was an impersonation of his father Vader's technique, which I do believe he passed on to Anakin Solo. Beyond that, Anakin has also shown skill in the highly dangerous and highly advanced form of Trakata, on one occasion deactivating his lightsaber to get under the guard of a Yuuzhan Vong warrior before quickly igniting the blade through his armpit. As you can likely figure out by that feat, Trakata was the style of quickly deactivating a lightsaber blade to catch an opponent off guard before quickly reigniting it. Anakin was also noted for having some skill in Jar-Kai dual blade fencing, on one occasion defending the prone body of Deshira Kor with dual blades, and he has also been shown using and integrating physical strikes into his lightsaber sequences. Anakin Solo carried a standard hilt lightsaber of a nondescript make beyond the user's own familiarity. The only real thing that separates Solo's weapon from other Jedi in his era was that rather than use either an Adegan or an Ilum crystal to power his weapon, he instead used a Yuuzhan Vong lambent crystal, which allowed Anakin to vaguely sense the Yuuzhan Vong, who other Jedi couldn't do due to the Vong's resistance to the Force. Anakin's movesets were made up of short chopping strikes, whirling flourishes, coupled with parries and counterattacks, constantly waiting for the opponent to make the first move before reacting and exploiting their weakness, while also chaining in physical-based attacks and hand-to-hand combat into his lightsaber sequences. Tactically, Anakin was very gifted. When fighting against groups of opponents, he would tactically guide the fight to a situation of his choosing and separate the group, making each opponent fight alone, and picking them off one by one. In fighting one-on-one duels, he usually played a war of attrition style of fighting, blocking and parrying his opponent, and putting pressure in kind, all to wait and allow his opponent to slip up or make an error before quickly countering or exposing such an error. Anakin Solo's most impressive feats of martial skill were in his duels with the Yuuzhan Vong Shock Choka, his sparring session with Grand Master Luke Skywalker, and his final stand before his death. Shock Choka was a highly esteemed Yuuzhan Vong warrior, renowned for his combat skill. The two matched each other in one-on-one battle for a solid amount of time, trading advantages before Choka ultimately overextended, allowing Anakin to sever his head. His sparring session with Luke was actually a scheme to free Anakin's older brother Jason from a quote-unquote house arrest, with the intention of creating a large distraction to attract a crowd. While the two were not fighting to the death and only sparring, Luke actually switched to a, quote, wild sparking offense and pressed his attack beyond the obvious blocks and parries, which Anakin blocked with little difficulty. Let me repeat that for you in case you don't realize how insanely impressive this showing of martial skill is for young Solo. Grandmaster Luke Skywalker, the strongest Jedi and potentially strongest Force wielder besides maybe the Wills or the Beldam spirits, a character who has matched Darth Vader and Dark Empire Sidious while pre-prime in martial skill, and later in life, defeat Anakin's older brother, Darth Caedus, in lightsaber combat. Three of the most skilled martial artists in Sith history actually attempted to subvert Anakin's guard and push the young Padawan's limits to try and overwhelm him, which Anakin reacted to and parried with ease. That's insane. Lastly, I wanted to make a mention of Anakin Solo's final stand right before his death, where the young Jedi carved his way through dozens of Yuuzhan Vong warriors in order to destroy the Voxan duplicates, before ultimately being overwhelmed by the army. Quite an impressive last stand considering just how deadly the Vong were in combat and how many Anakin was fighting and defeating at once. Bastila Shan, despite being more focused on her Force abilities, was quite a skilled martial artist, and one duelist not to be underestimated, as she is contended with some of the most skilled lightsaber duelists of her era. While her chosen lightsaber forms have never been confirmed outright, we have more than enough evidence to make an educated guess. Her emphasis on Force-based attacks coupled with her lightsaber sequences, along with her use of the saber staff, acrobatics, and aggressive lightsaber combat, as well as her knowledge of Jarkai dual-blade fencing, makes me believe that she was a practitioner of both Form 4 Ataru and Form 6 Nyman. Also referred to as the Way of the Hawkbat, Ataru was a fast-paced and aggressive lightsaber style. It was based on the use of flamboyant blade work coupled with acrobatics and the entire body being used as a weapon. Also known as the Moderation form, Nyman was a jack-of-all-trades fighting style that took bits and elements from all styles to suit the needs of the moment. The form's emphasis was on moderation above all else, and easy to learn while very difficult to master. My personal belief is that Bastila, like most young Padawans filled with energy, initially started out as an Ataru practitioner before implementing Nyman into her personal technique, hybridizing the two forms over time. When fighting offensively, Bastila employed a highly aggressive onslaught, built with flourishing blade work and acrobatics, along with force-based attacks integrated into her lightsaber sequences. Defensively, she kept her blade tight, parrying and redirecting the opponent's strikes, and in some alternate cases, simply rotating the hilt to intercept and block, all the while using force-based attacks into her sequences, usually telekinesis or force stun as a Jedi, and during her brief time as a Sith, the occasional use of force lightning. Tactically, Bastila was pretty average. While she was the one who led the strike team against Revan during the Jedi Civil War, we don't see how she led this attack, and beyond that, hasn't really shown any true tactical prowess. Bastila Shan carried a saber staff that could split into two separate lightsabers. Both weapons were powered by yellow Adegan crystals. In the realm of her showings, Bastila's most impressive showcases of her dueling prowess have been her duels with Revan, Darth Malak, and her dueling the trio of Revan, Jolee Bindo, and Juhani. Her duel with Malak is a fight we didn't get to see much of, but we did get a glimpse of it. The fight opened with Bastila using a lightsaber throw to draw Malak's attention, before quickly being overpowered and overwhelmed in only a few strikes by the Dark Lord. While it may seem unimpressive how quickly Bastila was overpowered, we must also not forget just how skilled Malak is, who, might I add, is outright confirmed to be a superior swordsman to Revan. Bastila would engage Revan in a second duel on the unknown world, but this time the tables were turned, with Bastila being the one on the dark side, and Revan being the Jedi, along with his own strike team of Jolee and Juhani. Actually, I'm just realizing that the duel I'm mentioning may have actually been a callback to the way Bastila and her Jedi strike team tried to kill Revan and ended up saving him. And if that's actually true, then it only adds to my list of 1,000 reasons why KOTOR is fucking brilliant. Despite losing this duel, Bastila did acquit herself very well, especially since she was dueling 3 opponents at once, one of which was Revan, who was stated to be more powerful than he was as a Sith only days later, and while Jolee and Juhani are perhaps less impressive, don't underestimate them. Plus, strength in numbers did give Team Jedi another edge. Add to the fact that Bastila fought as long as she did is still very impressive. Lastly, Bastila would engage in a final duel against Revan aboard the Starforge, where she was amped by the station's dark power. Despite her advantage, she was ultimately defeated. However, let's not forget that she lost to Revan of all characters, a figure who, only hours later, is stated to be stronger than he was as the Dark Lord of the Sith, and someone who has matched and even defeated an amped Darth Malak, who is a stronger version of the Malak who beat Bastila. You see why this isn't necessarily a bad loss on her part? Although I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that Revan was likely not going all out since he was very horny. All in all, Bastila Shan was a force to be reckoned with, and despite her many losses, is still one you should not be underestimating. This one's a little trickier than I initially expected. Both Bastila Shan and Anakin Solo were products of galactic warfare, and while perhaps not as declared as best of the best swordsmen of their era, were still both highly talented martial artists in their own right. Moving first into the weaponry section, Bastila receives the edge. While Anakin's lightsaber is unique, due to it having a Yuuzhan Vong lambent crystal, all the weapon really does is give Solo a faint sense of the Yuuzhan Vong, and doesn't give him an edge in this fight compared to Bastila's multiple options. Tactically, I give the edge to Anakin. While Bastila isn't stupid by any means, we haven't really seen her properly in tactical prowess, while Anakin has consistently employed effective battlefield and single combat-based tactics throughout his various fights. In terms of the opponents that they have faced, regarding Anakin's fights with Shock Choka and Luke Skywalker, and Bastila's multiple duels with Revan and Malak along with their group battles. First of all, while facing Revan, Jolee, and Juhani at once is very impressive, I'm not so sure it's as impressive as fighting and cutting down dozens of Yuuzhan Vong warriors as a final stand. Regarding Anakin's duel with Luke, the first thing we must remember is that it was a sparring session, and the two were not going all out. Luke was using quick surprise attacks to catch and throw Anakin off guard to try and test him, but he was never going to kill him. Yes, because Luke Skywalker would never think about murdering his own nephew out of fear, and the only time he ever tried was because Kaitis had murdered his wife, was kidnapping and torturing his son, and was also committing galactic atrocities. And even then Luke restrained from killing him in cold blood. However, just because Luke wasn't going all out here doesn't make this feat unimpressive in the slightest, especially when we know just how skilled and powerful he is. And dare I say it, it compares to Bastila's performances against Revan and Malak. Add to the fact that Anakin won his fight with shock and didn't outright lose to Luke, while Bastila was defeated by both Revan and Malak. Now, getting defeated by Darth Malak or Revan is no pushover. In terms of saber skills, I personally believe that Malak, at the very least, is high council tier, with Revan not being too far behind. So the fact that Bastila even held her own at all is very impressive. However, Anakin has fought opponents of equal or even greater skill and performed much better. Moving into a technique comparison, when discussing Anakin's use of the 3 rings of defense, I go back to my original statement that I said in my Vernestra Rove vs. Ben Skywalker video, in that I don't believe that Bastila would be caught off guard by the style, despite it not existing in her era. The form is built from the original classic forms that she already knows, and I think she's a skilled enough duelist to not be overwhelmed outright. While the hybrid version of Djemso is unique, I don't think it's all that different from the OG style, since that's what it's an imitation of, nor the aggressive fighting styles of the Sith warriors that Bastila has fought against. While Bastila does have the function of disassembling her saber staff into dual blades, she's never done this in a duel before that we've seen, so she likely won't employ it here. And by that same token, Anakin will also not be using his skill in Jarkai since he doesn't have access to an extra lightsaber just laying around. One area where Solo does get the solid edge is in his use of Trakata. While a difficult style, it is a deadly surprise-based form, and one that could catch Bastila off guard. Add to it Anakin's more impressive dueling and tactical showings, and his advantage is as solid as it gets. Anakin Solo gets the edge as a martial artist and a lightsaber duelist. One of the most gifted Force wielders of his day. One lost far too quickly. There can be no questioning that Anakin Solo was one of the most gifted and talented young knights of his order. In terms of accolades, Anakin has been consistently stated to be one of the most powerful knights of his generation. Add to the fact that he is outright stated to have more raw power than either of his siblings, Jason or Jaina, which is insane to think about when we know just how powerful both of them would turn out to become. Many Jedi even believed that Anakin had the potential to become the next Luke Skywalker in terms of power, which again, knowing that Luke was one of the most powerful Jedi of all time, and potentially the strongest Force wielder of all time behind gods and entities, is quite a statement to the young boy's potential. Let's not forget the fact that Darth Sidious believed that taking over the infant Anakin Solo's body was the only way to survive and stay immortal, which again speaks to his raw potential. However, just as with Anakin Skywalker, I would like to make an important disclaimer. Anakin Solo never reached his full potential as a Force wielder, being killed during the Yuuzhan Vong War. He never achieved this Grand Master level of power, nor his full potential. The reason I bring up such statements is just to show you where this kid was headed in terms of power. That being said, Anakin Solo was quite the powerful Force user, despite all this, and still stood as one of the strongest knights of his generation. Physical-based Force augmentation allowed young Solo to enhance his physical attributes to the superhuman levels, and enhance this power with his skill in Force Valor. In the realm of telekinesis, his power was both grand and subversive. He has been shown consistently lifting large amount of boulders, usually weighing around 500 kilograms with little difficulty, and he has used force-based pushes and shoves to throw back Yuuzhan Vong warriors and hordes of soldiers. On one occasion, Anakin successfully used the Force to slow down Tahiri Vela's fall down a turbolift shaft, while simultaneously sending a pile of grenades back up the shaft and out the door where they were originally dropped, before holding said turbolift in the air. Solo can also use his powers much more subversively, one time igniting the dropped lightsaber of Jedi Knight Deshira Kor to block a Yuuzhan Vong's attack from killing her. He has also been shown being capable of lifting anything not bolted down to the ground in a given area, one occasion being where he lifted everything in a 10-mile radius of himself before creating a telekinetic cyclone to destroy a Yuuzhan Vong flyer. Anakin was also capable of the Violent Force Crush ability. As a child with little training, he had been capable of killing a giant snake by stopping its heart. He also appeared to have quite the aptitude with the Force Slow ability, as previously mentioned, being able to slow down Tahiri Vela's fall from a turbolift shaft, and on another occasion, slowed his descent while in an escape pod to prevent him from a deadly crash. In the realm of telepathy, Anakin was very advanced in his application. He was very adept with the Jedi mind trick, using it to suggest to a group of looters to leave instead of trying to steal from the Millennium Falcon. He has also been shown putting the mental images inside one's mind, and also knew how to put other life forms to sleep, as well as an unnamed technique that allowed a Peace Brigade to see him and Tahiri Vela as a shadow and planet light. He was also quite gifted with beast manipulation, manipulating several piranha bees into attacking a group of Yuuzhan Vong. Anakin's most impressive telepathic power was his skill in Battle Meld, where he would bridge his mind with other Force wielders, creating a telepathic network of communication among his allies. He also possessed quite an aptitude with Force healing, notably healing the injured Sana as well as himself from a Yuuzhan Vong attack. Tutamentis was yet another power Anakin was quite adept with, as he used it to absorb fire and toxic air for his allies to have more clean air to breathe in. Lastly, I wanted to talk about Anakin's most insane showing of power, right before his death, being the moment where he briefly achieved a form of oneness. As he fought off dozens of Yuuzhan Vong and felt no pain while also emitting a light side aura. This is definitely a step up from the form of oneness possessed by Kanan Jarrus, and similar to the oneness that his grandfather Anakin Skywalker and his sister Jaina Solo accomplished, however not quite as impressive as what Luke and Jacen Solo accomplished years later. Nevertheless, Anakin Solo is quite an impressive Force wielder for his age, and it is truly a shame for his death during the Vong War, as his future held so much great promise for what he could have achieved. Like Anakin Solo, Bastila Shan was an immensely powerful young Jedi, despite her age, and stood as one of the most promising students of the Force of her generation. Like all trained Force wielders, she was capable of Force-enhanced augmentation, which she used to bolster her physical attributes. In the realm of telekinesis, she was both powerful and skilled, strong enough to push back waves of opponents and even other trained Force wielders on occasion. Beyond that, she was known for having immense skill in both Force Slam and Force Whirlwind, where a Force user would lift a target in the air before rapidly spinning them around. She was also capable of the lightsaber throw, using it against Darth Malak to draw his attention. In the realm of telepathy, she was capable, gifted in the standard Jedi mind tricks. She was also gifted with Force Stun, where she would put her opponents in a brief catatonic state and briefly paralyze them. Also similar to Anakin Solo, she was also gifted in the healing arts, capable of healing anything but the most deathly of wounds, and even using the Force to preserve Revan's life after Malak's betrayal. Lastly, we should mention the elephant in the room, that being Bastila's gift with Battle Meditation. Battle Meditation is a power where Force users go into a form of meditation and bolster their allies' morale and will to fight, while weakening the opponents. Shan's use of the power was so great that many believed it to be the ultimate turning point of victory for the Republic during the Jedi Civil War, and Darth Malak went out of his way just to capture her for it. It's all tied up, and since Force abilities will be the deciding factor, I will be proceeding directly into the final verdict. Physical augmentation cancels out to their physical attributes, which we have already discussed. In the realm of telepathy, I see both as being capable of defending against the other, although I should mention that in terms of power and developed skill, Anakin definitely gets the advantage. Both are also skilled in the healing arts, however I don't think it really plays all that much of a factor in this contest. Bastila's use of Force Stun is interesting, and may give her a slight advantage. However, I'm also not so sure that her use of the power is enough to outright paralyze Anakin and take him out of the fight. And by that same token, I don't see Anakin's use of Tutamentis as playing into this fight either, since he doesn't have enough skill to block a lightsaber blade, and Bastila really doesn't have any other forms of energy-based combat. Despite being these two's greatest showings of power, that be it Bastila's battle meditation and Anakin's oneness, I don't see either of them being really viable here, since battle meditation requires immense concentration, which Anakin is not going to be giving Bastila, and Anakin's oneness feat is extremely circumstantial. Moving into telekinesis, there is an interesting difference between these two in how they employ their telekinesis in the heat of battle. Anakin Solo is what I would describe as a tactical subverter, while Bastila operates more as a Force duelist. Anakin's emphasis is on using the environment around him to suit the needs of the moment, using Dashira Kor's fallen lightsaber, creating a cyclone of debris, lifting several boulders to use as weapons. You get the idea. By contrast, Bastila's emphasis is more direct, using pushes and shoves, Force whirlwind to isolate targets, lightsaber throws. Again, you see my point. However, when looking at all of their showcases of power, I personally believe that not only is Anakin Solo bringing more raw power to the table, but he's also bringing more skill and variety. His use of multitasking with the Force, along with his sheer power, giving him the overall edge. The fight between Anakin Solo and Bastila Shan would be a great fight. I must stress that just because Anakin got all the advantages, it doesn't mean that this is a stomp fight. In fact, it's not even close to a stomp fight. Bastila is very much in the same tier as Solo in terms of power, and would give him a solid fight. However, when looking at all the factors, Anakin Solo simply outclasses her, and after an intense duel, would come out victorious. I declare Anakin Solo the victor. And that is the Versus video. Be sure to like, comment, if you have any critiques or criticisms about the analysis. Hopefully, I've gotten you to stop sleeping on Anakin Solo's power, because he is by far the most underrated NJO Jedi, and one of the most underappreciated and underrated Jedi ever. I mean, hopefully this video finally got people to stop sleeping on his power, and hopefully more people will start using him. But hey, who watches my channel who's a big Versus creator? No one. But that's alright. So, yeah, I'll see you guys next time. We got a bunch more projects coming down the line, so stay tuned for that. This is Demon360, signing off. Peace.